Hello. How's everybody doing out there? I'm really hoping that the tech is all working. Seems to be a little bit of a delay, so I'm just going to give it a minute to make sure that it's all good. Just checking the tech. Always a good time doing something brand new like this. Okay, so I think there's a little bit of a delay, but hello everyone. I'm Athena. I'm so excited you are here for the very first episode of Unrestricted Live. So before we kick off, I'm just gonna say a couple of things. This is brand new and never done anything like this before. So the last time that I tried to do a webinar on YouTube, it did get taken down after 20 minutes. The bots are going like censorship crazy right now. So in case that does happen, which hopefully it won't, this is being recorded and I will send the link out to everybody afterwards. So don't worry, we'll make sure to get it all out to you, but hopefully we'll be all good today and they won't have anything. Like, we're just talking about all good positive stuff today. So hopefully it won't be an issue. And also people are tuning in from all over the world. So if you haven't yet, make sure to comment and let us know where you're tuning in from. And please do feel free to join in the conversation. The format of this is brand new, so we're kind of like trial and error. I'm going to bring Steph on in a minute, and hopefully we'll have some time for questions at the end. So just start thinking about maybe what questions that you want to ask as we're going through this, but do feel free to keep chatting with each other in the comments, and we'll try to highlight some questions. We've got this like nifty platform, so we can highlight your questions a little bit later on. So thank you so much for tuning in. Just really quick, my name is Athena. I'm currently in Panama City, Panama, down in Central America. It's 33 degrees. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but I'm so excited to have you here. And the reason why I started this is because I was one of the classic kind of change my career and want to achieve everything without really thinking about what it is that I wanted. So I was just chasing career and money and all this stuff. And I ended up getting so stressed out. I ended up having a couple of life breakdowns and came to realize that the way we define success is something that society has kind of imposed on us. This idea that we need to have $1 million companies, or we need to kill ourselves for a career, sacrifice our personal lives, and at the detriment of our own health and well-being. And we're now a very broken society with a lot of things that are causing us tons of anxiety. So I went on my own journey of self-discovery a couple years ago, and have freed myself from those restrictions. But I really wanted to help other people do that. And the way that I have been doing that is by helping people kind of learn the habits of productivity to apply to their personal lives. So the time you spend on your work stuff is less, it's more optimized, you're doing better work in less time so that you can go off and enjoy your life. And also redefining what success actually is. So to me, success is not about how much money you earn or how many material possessions you have. It's in how you live your life and, your attitude, the way you're making sure that you're valuing your friendships and your family and your personal time, and, not really needing to have a ton, but that doesn't mean that you can't have money. It's just shifting this idea of what success really means. And I realized, a couple of weeks ago, actually, when I was talking to Steph, who I'll introduce you to, is that I have so many amazing people that I've been able to draw on in my life. And I've been able to be just in awe and inspired by the way that they looked at life, their happiness, their balance, the way they incorporated fun things and play and movement, and didn't seem to be killing themselves. And so, I've collected these people over the years, and since this whole situation has kicked off, I've been really blessed to be able to spend lots of time with them and connecting with them and just hearing their inspiring stories. And I thought, do you know what? It would be remiss of me not to share this with the world, because I can tell my story, and I have a really great story and a tumultuous journey and I'm like feeling really good about that. But you know, there's a lot of amazing people out there that I want to introduce you to. So Steph is someone I met in 2008. We worked together at a marketing agency in LA while I was looking after the Microsoft Entertainment and Devices account. And Steph was the creative director there. And I was just always drawn to her because she was a total like boss at work, man. Like she got stuff done, but she always had a smile on her face. She always brought fun into everything that she did, and always had this like really great outlook. So anytime I was like super stressed out, I'd like go to Steph and like we'd have a conversation and it would just bring me right down. So she's working on a really exciting project now. We're going to hear all about her. So I'm going to introduce you to Steph. Let's see if we can bring her into the stream. All right. Hello. Let me unmute you actually.
Testing, testing, testing.
Yes, we can hear you. Hi, Steph. How are you?
I can't tell you how excited I am to see how many people from all around the world are logging in, and it's just brilliant. And thank you so much for having me, and happy Mother's Day to everyone out there who has any type of mother-child relationship to anything. It could even be a plant, but happy Mother's Day to all of you wonderful mothers out there.
Yeah, shout out to my mom in the other room. Woo! Happy Mom's Day.
On to Dr. Carmen Wan at Garden Grove representing.
Hi, Mom. Amazing. So, Steph, I gave a little bit of an intro, but I would love if you could just wow us with this incredible career and your background, and then we can get into what you're doing now. But I just think it's so impressive, some of the stuff that you've worked on. So give us a snapshot of what your career has been like and where you've been.
Gosh, the snapshot. All right, well, I'll start with a little bit of foundation. So my mom did an incredible job raising us, dabbled at everything. Swimming, dancing, music, school, travel, but never really found that passion young in my younger years. And when I was 11, we made a big switch from the city to the country, and a whole new set of learning came to me: how to balance nature, how not to get bit by a scorpion or a snake, how to take care of a massive amount of animals. I think when I was 8, we got an old dog from my aunt. By the time I was 11, we had 7 horses, pigs, 5 dogs, chinchillas, pet rats, and it just kept growing. And so we had this, I think there were like 37 living things at our house up in Mariposa, which was really incredible. And, we just had the opportunity to be exposed to a lot of things as we were kids. And it was really exciting. I'm one of 4. I'm the oldest girl. I have an older brother and then 2 younger sisters. And, just had a really great childhood. So, when you talk about tumultuous, I don't know if I can relate to that so much. I haven't had a whole lot of trauma in my life. But what I can say is that there is an energy in me that's kind of always existed. I've always been curious. I've always wanted to learn about things. And I've always really enjoyed when other people are having a really good time. So that, the spirit in me led to becoming a high school mascot, becoming the rally commissioner at my high school, which was really exciting. My school, it is one of those magical situations that could be made into a television series where everyone was friends, everyone was collaborating. I was in drama, I was in chorus, I was spray painting banners. The school was very much into taking risks and being creative. And so I actually got really caught up in that and didn't think much about what would happen in college and what would happen after I graduated high school. And my passion for entertainment sort of led me to Cal State Fullerton because it was the closest thing to Disneyland. And I was determined to get a job at Disneyland. The very first time I auditioned for a job there on the entertainment side, I remember I borrowed a tracksuit from my grandma, this bright blue Speedo tracksuit that was like morning trip to Catalina on a boat kind of look. It was really not appropriate, but I didn't know. And I sat into this audition and immediately was sent away, but had the opportunity to be exposed, right? To see what are people wearing, how are people behaving, and really have the chance to see firsthand how these circumstances are needing to be leveraged if you want to get in. The audition thing, I just kept trying, but it didn't work out at first. I tried concessions, I tried rides, I just could not get hired at Disney.
Wow.
So focused on schoolwork, needed a job, and wound up at the Olive Garden, which I stayed for 10 years. And it was one of the most brilliant experiences that I have ever had. My manager, before he hired me, he looked at me and he said, "I think that you're high risk and you have a lot of energy, and I don't know if I can contain you." And I had to
energy in a serving role, like
right. Right. Yeah. He's like, "I don't know about this girl," but I was like, "Listen, Scott, if you bring me on, I promise you that I will work hard, I will be reliable, and I will make it happen." Like people, yeah, I'm a people person. So he brought me on, and it led to exposure to a whole nother world of things. Timing standards, how to communicate to guests, listening skills, quality assurance. By the time I left the Olive Garden, I was the inventory manager, scheduling, the certified trainer, lead certified trainer. I was assistant managing. Whenever a manager didn't show, I would step in and fill that void. And I just kept learning all of these skills and all of these tools. I didn't know what was going to happen. And a few years into my, actually maybe 1 year into my Olive Garden experience, I got a phone call. I got a phone call from Disneyland that said, "Listen, Gilbert has torn his ACL, and we want you to come in and fill his role in a show called Fantasmic." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" You know, by this time I had the leotard, I had the dance pants, I had, the hair up and out of the face. I was standing to the front.
How you did the audition. Yeah,
I learned, I grew, and I observed, and I basically leveraged what it is that I saw so that I could advance. And when I got that phone call, oh my gosh, I was over the moon. It was only 2 days to start. But again, my world opened again, and it wasn't anything like the Olive Garden. Quality standards were similar. Timing obviously is everything, but it was movement. It was performance. It was telling stories, it was through collaboration and reliability, like can they count on me to be there? And it worked out. And I wound up spending 10 years there, doing an assortment of different things. I was on the special events team. I got to do grad nights. I got to work character side, which is a really interesting thing to engage with people without words and to personify a character that is known throughout the world, and to get to experience how people interact with that character when you yourself are receiving that energy. It's really a humbling experience. And
I remember was it Cinderella? Like, what was the picture of you?
Girl,
this was a million years ago. Like, what was it?
Lessons from Cinderella. No. The closest I ever got to Cinderella was her evil stepsisters. Cinderella has two stepsisters, Drizella and Anastasia. And I was able to portray those roles in the Main Street Electrical Parade and in the Christmas Parade, and which was really, really fun. Face character roles, again, whole nother thing, because now you are the character. Everything you say, everything you do. And I learned a lot through all of it. The quality and the professionalism and the business practices of my early career experiences were amazing. And actually, my next role was kind of an accident, or I guess just a yes moment. But I was at Phantasmic. A friend of mine, Rachel Gass, who was a associate of mine performing, her brother-in-law had a company called Sandbox Marketing, and they had collaborated with B Corps to put on an action sports tour called the Core Tour, and it was happening in Huntington Beach. And I was thank you, Anna. I'm glad you're loving it. In the Alps in Germany, she's loving it. Super interesting. Keep your comments coming, everyone. I'm loving that. So I found myself volunteering to be a brand ambassador. I was, going to spin a wheel and hand out lanyards or things, little kitschy things that people were winning and promotional items. And the DJ didn't show. And I kid you not, I ran to my 1992 Geostorm hatchback, cherry red. I grabbed a book of CDs and I ran back to the tent and I said, I want to be your DJ. I want to be your MC. And they said, go for it because we need someone. And everything changed because of Michael Zager Band's Let's All Chant, which if you don't know that jam, it's an amazing song. Everyone gets a solo, and which is my style, right? And as Michael Zager Band started, this diverse group of all ages people start having this amazing dance party outside of the Panasonic tent. At the exact same moment, the executives that are sponsoring this entire festival walk by and see this amazing moment. And they're like, we want that girl. We want her on the tour. Send her to New York. Like, she is now the face of this brand.
Amazing.
Which was right. And it was like just one of those things where it was just like right place, right time, right song, and from there, it launched me into this world of event production, which I didn't know anything about. I didn't major in it. I wasn't focused on it in college. What college ultimately taught me was that I can keep down 2 jobs while graduating Dean's List, while being on track and field, while still having fun and, graduating debt free, I'm really proud to say. But, in your 20s, and your teens and 20s, you've got so much energy,
Yeah.
And when you can find ways to make that energy work for you. And again, I'm very fortunate that I had those experiences, but it launched me into this event production world. And then at Disney, one day I was doing a special event and my ACL snapped, right? How ironic that I got in because of Gilbert's ACL snapping. And I gave someone else an opportunity to replace me when my ACL snapped. And I couldn't walk for 4 months. The muscle on my left leg completely disappeared, and I just had this flabby left leg that was just no muscle. And I had to do something with myself. And so I shifted into planning. I shifted into taking the event production from being on site and being a personality to mapping out 2 tours for Sandbox, one of which I wound up going on. So 6 months later, I recovered. I went to physical therapy. I hula hooped a lot. And I was able to drive a 24-foot box truck across America on a college tour for ESPN and Suzuki with the original Heisman Trophy. And I was able to give fans their first ever public vote for the Heisman Trophy recipient, which in 2004 was Reggie Bush, which has led into a lot of controversy since then. But he was a really incredible USC football player. And it gave me, again, the chance to see what is possible, right? Like, we would roll up to these colleges with this golf cart in the back of my truck that I had to bring down and take up on these 2 like long things. There was no lift gate, right? So I had to launch this golf cart up and down. I'd roll through campus with these like speakers blasting, flames on the side of the golf cart. I would find my staff. I would recruit them the day before. I would negotiate rates. I had a checkbook that I would just cut them checks. And I would find this crew of people on campus that would show up the next day and build this massive tailgating party. And I had to do it with people I'd never met. And I had to do it for brands that were massive. Allstate and Hormel and ESPN and Suzuki and, like major, with the Heisman Trophy, which is, a testament to all trophies of the world, And what I love the most about it is that the guys got so excited. They were just so excited, like the Heisman Trophy. Like, hey, I was like, yes. Anyway, and with that too, I got to do NBC, ABC, and CBS broadcasts across the United States at all of these markets to promote the tour. So I was in front of camera. I needed to be in front at these news stations. I got to go up to the craziest, like in Tucson, I was up in the middle of nowhere, and it was the darkest place I'd ever been in my life. And I walked in, and it was one camera and one guy running the board and running the camera. And then I'd go to Montgomery, Alabama, and it was like a massive studio with like 42 people, right? So I got to see this intricate, scalable kind of way that people get things done. And that led me to the final stop at the Rose Bowl, where I had this incredible guy named David Spielman working with my sister at an inflatable game. And that strike was a little bit, when we put everything away, we call it the strike. It was a little more intense than our normal events. And David stayed, and he just gave me so much of his time and so much of his energy. And he was so positive that I took him home at the end of the night. I gave him a ride. I bought him a 6-pack. Didn't know if I was ever going to see him again. And Tucson is in the middle of nowhere. Yes, actually, they have light ordinances in Tucson. And the reason it was so dark is because after a certain time, you're not allowed to have your lights up over a certain lumen because of the lightning. There's massive, go Sun Devils, there's a massive amount of lightning that happens in Tucson. And a lot of professional photographers go out there for weather footage. Anyway, so my phone rings one day, and it's this guy, Kelly, who I'd never met, Kelly Bott. And he's like, hey, my brother-in-law, David, worked with you on the ESPN tour, and he can't talk enough about how positive his experience was. We're looking for a host for our double-decker bus. It's a Red Bull party bus that's going to drive across America. And so I called and so they're like, and do you know anybody with a CDL license? Working at Disneyland, if you drive a float, there are particular licenses and trainings that you have to go through. So I called up my best friend, Nikki Melanowski, and I said, hey, Nikki, what's Dino's number? I'm going to give him a shout. I want to see if he wants to drive this double-decker bus, and I'm going to be the hostess, and it's going to be great. She gives me his number on my flip phone, and 3 or 4 minutes later, she calls back, and she's like, I have an idea. What if you get your driver's license, you drive the bus, and I'll be your hostess? And I was like, this is crazy, but why not? And so we took headshots, we built this portfolio, we put ourselves together and packaged ourselves. And then we went to Melrose, where the original B Corps office was. And we met Mark Bullock and Kelly Bott in flesh for the first time, and said, listen, this is what we want to do. I want to get my CDL license. I'll go Class B. I want my passenger training. I want, or passenger certification. I want my air brake training. And Nikki will be my hostess. She'll drive the car and make sure that there's nothing for me to run into as we're driving across America. And they said yes. And it's just crazy, right? So please.
That's one thing I loved about Mark and Kelly. So B Corps was the company that Steph and I worked at. But when I started there, it was like this army of amazing women, like all of us were looking after accounts, and they gave us so much autonomy and so much trust and so much responsibility. Yeah. And like still to this day, like all the girls that I worked with there, I'm just like blown away by them and having those kinds of opportunities. And like, it wasn't a gender thing. Like, yeah, you want to get your CDL and drive across the country, like go for it. Like you want to run a club by yourself, go for it. So
I have goosebumps.
It's so fascinating. So and I have like tons of questions for you about your life and stuff. So just if you could quickly give us tell us about the clients of B Corps, and then post B Corps, you had some amazing stuff too. And then I just want to start digging in because I think it's really evident to everybody, your energy is just incredible. So, and I'm sure all these amazing stories will come up when we get through some more of this stuff as well.
Oh my gosh, that's my background.
Here for 4.5 hours.
I know. So it's true. So I got into B Corps. Yeah, no, and very quickly, found opportunities and became an executive, right? Within a matter of years. I did work for Red Bull directly before I came in office at B Corps, and that stint at Red Bull gave me training that I have never seen anything like it. Personal growth and development, business planning. I've never seen training more significant than what I received at Red Bull, and I'm so grateful for that. And with what I was doing there, I was running the mobile energy team for all of West Los Angeles. The first thing I had to do was scrap my team and build a brand new one. And in that, I was able to meet some of the most incredible people that are still in my network, two of which, Kelsey Sherman and Whitney Long, came along for the ride and joined us at B Corps and have, gone on to have amazing careers. Oh, well, so many of them, everyone's doing well, but Kelsey and Whitney, followed our family line. And I shifted over to B Corps, became an executive there, sat at the table and had those arguments about how do you balance profitability, client satisfaction, creativity, and risk. A lot of the things that we do at B Corps are very high risk. You always hear that things that we want to do things that no one's ever done before. We built the world's largest shower. We built the world's largest super airplane. We put ourselves into situations that were risky. First and foremost for B Corps, but secondarily also for our clients and these brands that were really wanting to make impact. And, the two brands that really pushed my capacity were Nike and Red Bull. Working the 2010 Olympics for Nike with a wonderful man named Andrew Stewart, who led the charge in this massive global vote for these legendary features that people were illegally riding across the North Americas, and then having to rebuild those legendary features to scale in a park that had no snow because 2010 was terrible for Vancouver. That was one of the worst Winter Olympics with regards to actually having winter. Built, and then working internationally across borders and tariffs, and your team needing to get across and having to work with customs. And it was one of the most challenging pieces. And every project had its own system of complicated, pieces that needed solutions. But to your point, we had this team of people that charged towards it. No one had fear. It was like, yes, we can do this. Let's figure it out. Let's not get pissed about it. Let's find a solution that is the best balance of risk and experience, right? How do we not break it, but how do we push it close enough to where it might break, right? And how do we not break ourselves? Because at the end of the day, you need to get to that event, build it, deliver it, pack it up, and wrap it up, right? And which is way longer than just what you see when you're building an experience for someone to interact with. So 2012, I separated from B Corps. I moved to New York. I became independent, a producer, and got contracted for B Corps as well, and worked amazing jobs. Go Skate Day being the most memorable. Creating this amazing experience for the skateboarders of New York City, which have my heart still to this day. I have a massive network of skateboarders in New York, and watching their lives over the course of 5 years. They started off as kids, then they wound up being young adults, or different subsets of that. Watching people actually change who they became because of the support of a brand and the network that grew around that, and the community that grew around that, was so impactful. And I wanted to keep doing it. I wanted to keep giving people things. I wanted to give them packages that said, here you go, be the best you can be. Everything's figured out. We got sandwiches, we got first aid, whatever you need. Like I'll build you a skate park and that'll pop up for a couple of weeks and then disappear, or pop up for a couple of months and then disappear. Work with the city of New York, who are incredible. They let us recycle and repurpose and store our stuff under bridges, and it's just amazing. And so that led to a prophecy coming true, which my grandpa, who passed on Wednesday, 20 plus years ago, told me that I was going to be given an offer to move to China. And if I didn't take it, I would be a fool. And I see Frank is on the line. And he was the one who called me in April of 2018. And he said, listen, there's this really incredible company called WeWork. They are blitz scaling and they're growing very, very quickly. And they need a team on the ground to help with enterprise experience in Asia Pacific. Do you want the role of looking over that? And at the time, I was working on this really amazing project of flying a zip line over the High Line, which I think would still be a great project. But I had to listen to the prophecy, and I said yes, and completely flipped my world upside down and went back into corporate. But the WeWork world is kind of this, it was actually a perfect match for me. This balance of DIY, contribute where you can, very little management, hit the ground running, so much opportunity all around you. You really need to streamline it, but on behalf of these massive Fortune 500 global accounts that are trying to figure out how to make workplace more efficient for their employees. How do they make it more relevant? How are we transitioning workplaces into places that people want to be? And the way I see it is, how are companies representing themselves in office as opposed to just in front of the consumers, right? Because so often you go into these offices and it's these cubicles and it's very meticulous and there's so much process, and who knows who invented it. And we were breaking that mold and really reinventing, and it's happening everywhere right now. Like I'm so excited about the future, because the things that I have been exposed to in the last 2 years that I know are happening, the private rooms that I sat in, the C-suites, the, circular tables that I've sat around, and I've gotten to work on these projects with these massive, massive companies, and they are making the change. And it is so exciting, because the people and the companies are coming together to recognize that the future is completely different than the past. And the only way to get there is to make that change.
Yeah, man, we were talking about this the other day, but before I left London last August, I was working at a startup that, was basically talking about the future of food. So we got to do the same thing and tell these massive food companies like, hey, the future is coming and people care about what you're doing. And yeah, maybe you'll make profits next quarter, but you're not going to exist in 10 years if you don't start looking after your people, if you don't start looking after the people, that are making your products, if you don't legitimately put good things in your DNA. So they're having to also look at that in the workplace and how they're treating their employees, because people they're getting fed up and they're not leaving, and turnover is really, really costly to the organization. So, it's a really interesting time, especially with what's going on now. But wow, just mind blown, from Olive Garden to Disney performer to the face of Panasonic to Red Bull to Nike. I know you did stuff with Logica, and then going to, was it Hong Kong or Singapore? Hong Kong, right?
I lived in Hong Kong and I looked over APAC. So right. I've worked in India, I've worked in Japan, I've worked in Indonesia, I've worked all over China, Hong Kong, really amazing. And what's wild is that exposing myself to these cultures and these, I don't speak Chinese. I don't speak Japanese. I don't speak I speak German and I speak English and I speak a little Spanish. But I didn't need language, because business, I needed language, but I had support in that regard. But I was able to work with people all over the world and recognize not only what I was able to contribute to them, but what they are able to contribute to me. Understanding religious practices, understanding, the work day, the work week, different holiday schedules. America has a completely different set of schedules than the rest of the world, and Western Europe has a different set of standards, and it's really interesting to get to see that even through all of those idiosyncrasies, fundamentally, the change within the workplace and business is happening all over the world. And it's really, really exciting.
Yeah. So tell us about now. Like you've got this super exciting project that you're working on, and you're in a whole new kind of like set of challenges, right? Because you're doing something completely outside of your past experience. However, you're drawing on your past experience to pull that into it. So tell us about it. It's super exciting.
It really is. That's my biggest struggle, right? The word niche has come up a lot recently, right? They're creating a personal brand. What's your niche? You want to start a podcast? What's your niche? You want to start a business? What's your niche? And it's really good advice, right? But when you do come from a very different type of background where you have literally done a little bit of everything and enjoyed all of it, and I have a band, and I have a performance group, and I love being on stage, and I'm part of a phenomenal theater group that does amazing work. And, and I love to exercise, and I love to swim. So it's like, so you're telling me I need a niche, but how do I create a niche while still maintaining authenticity to myself, right? I can't walk into a room and not be me, right? But the collective of who I am is exactly that. It is pieces of things that are valuable and can be leveraged by others. And so in this new venture, which continuously changes shape in its early conception, the fundamental component is building a bridge between people who have things and people who need things. And when I say people, that can be businesses as well. But it's about building that bridge. It's about saying, you know what, Stephanie, you have seen so much and have done so much and have such a positive attitude about doing it. Why not deliver that content, those solutions in a bundled up way to the people who are looking for them? And what's wild is that, with this C-19 thing, which is really tragic. And, I've always been a very healthy person, but I am a true believer in practicing community safety. So I am doing my due diligence and quarantining and masking and, making sure that I'm being as good as I can be, because I don't know if a grandma's going to roll up after me and who knows what, right? But I do think that it is going to advance the need for changing mindset and survival for a lot of different companies out there that have kind of been holding back on making these changes because of fear of risk, and I think that the pendulum is really starting to swing in favor of making change, because the real risk now is starting to look like at the tradition, at the things that have been the same, at the things that have been maintained. If you do not wake up and start changing, you are going to be higher and higher risk of fail as time goes on. And, it's so wild. I always think to myself, oh my gosh, my grandparents have got to see so much, the television, the not planes, but like anyone born in 1900 to, let's just say they lived until 2000, the things that people got to see, but really we are going to be the ones that are like, by the time I'm 90, the world is going to be a completely different place. I was talking to my mom yesterday, who's looking at getting a new car. She's like, well, I'm going to be close to retirement, and I want to, make sure that I have a car that's going to last me, the next 20 years. And I'm like, Mom, honestly, in 20 years from now, if you need to go do something somewhere, there are going to be new solutions that aren't even available right now.
Yeah.
So, if you like think about 10 years, sure, if you love driving, like awesome, but recognize that the world is going to be a completely different world. Autonomous driving, the Lyfts and the Ubers have already taken shape. Electric solutions. Elon Musk is literally right down the street from me here in Long Beach. And, the magnetic trains and high-speed rails, it's going to happen. And it's going to happen a lot faster, I think, than it would have if we weren't confronted with a lot of these really interesting circumstances like COVID, where economies are shutting down, systems are breaking. And when that happens, the opportunistic view is leverage what exists and build something new, build something better based off of today, not yesterday.
Yeah, I think what's really evident in all of this is it's a forced pause for everyone, right? So like, whereas before we were busy in our lives and a lot of people like knew that they were stressed or that things weren't working or companies were just carrying on, and it's like this massive reset right now. So we have the time to kind of like evaluate, how are we dealing with this? How's our internal compass going? How is, what's happening in the world, and just this view of uncertainty. And I really truly believe that, when the world does open up again, a lot of people are going to go back and realize like they just can't go back to normal, because they realized what it was like to slow down. They realized what it was like to reconnect with people and spend time with family and really think about like, what am I doing this all for? And I think particularly with large companies, they're going to have to step in line with this shift in our consciousness and what our priorities are. But looking at like from startup mode, actually, because that's what I'm most interested in is, the large companies are able to kind of look at workplace well-being and that sort of thing. But when you're a startup and you're in startup mode, and you talked about how your project has evolved quite a bit. But I think, that's what people don't see or don't understand when they get into startup mode, is that what you start with doesn't often end up being what you end up going to market with, right? Like it's this whole process of evolution and trial and testing, and especially when, just, in a line, and it might have changed since the last time we talked, but you're looking at building a platform that's a resource for event planners to find vetted resources. So if they want to find vans, or if they want to find DJs, or if they want to find lighting. So there's no resource at the moment where you can go and find all of these things. And what you've amassed in your years is not only the understanding of, the different elements that you might need there, but also how to find these different types of people, what questions to ask them, what questions to ask yourself. So you're almost like imparting all of this knowledge into a digital platform that allows people to find and vet and book, the different resources that they might need for their event. Is that still kind of the rough shape of it?
Yeah, that's the rough shape of it. As it pertains to who the end buyer is, I haven't quite landed on that yet. The reality is that I started with a very grand vision on a very grand scale. And the best advice that I got, with regards to startup, having an idea is easy.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing that idea to life is much more complicated. And the one thing that I knew in moving forward in this process is that I needed to rely on a close network of trusted people to push out my initial concepts and get feedback from them. And I did that to 7 people, you being one of them. And the insight and the recommendations that I got back from that network of people has given me such clarity around what I need to do with regards to next steps. Regionalizing and bringing things into a place where I can test and iterate is one of the most credible pieces of advice that I've gotten. And at this point, I want to test my markets. I want to see who my consumer is. I want to understand, this whole concept started pre-COVID. Several years ago. It started years and years ago. And I dusted it off of the shelf when I transitioned out of WeWork and came back to California. And the reality is that nobody has the ability to know where the spin stops right now. It could be red hand yellow. It could be left foot blue, whatever. You don't know where the game of life is going to take you. But what I do know is that collectively across the board, the insights that exist through my lens are valuable both to event planners and to corporate, right, to enterprise. And I want to figure out exactly who it is that I can speak to and reach, that it's going to make the most impact and help me build something that is scalable, but also creating the most impact. Like, I'm not doing anything in my life to get rich. It would be a byproduct. I really want to take the collective of my insights and knowledge, and I want to put them into a platform that other people can easily access. Because the one thing, like to your point with productivity, and I'm all efficiency, same, basically the same word, time. It just takes time. And when you've had overlapping career paths, like, if you, like, I'm 40, I've been working since I was 18, but I've have like 40 years collective experience, right? Because I've had 10 years of food and beverage, and I've had 10 years of entertainment, and I've had, maybe not 40, or, I think I said 30, like maybe 23 years, right? But when you can look at all of that, and fortunately for me, I've just always been interested in learning. Curiosity is something that comes naturally. So why not bundle it all and deliver it in a way that someone else would say, thank you so much for appreciating that I need something, but I don't have the time or the experience to know where to go to find it. And if you can bridge those things together, then you are able to advance the world that we live in.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's what I want to do. My personal mission in life is to leave this world better than I found it, in as big of a way as I can.
So I think it's really interesting for other people that might just be starting off, or people that are thinking about starting a business, is that one of the things people don't realize is this put it out, test it, iterate it, learn from it process, and that can be super frustrating. And I know myself with my food business a couple of years back, I waited until it was perfect to put it out. Like I went through the whole manufacturing process and the designing the perfect, packaging and everything, and spent tens of thousands of pounds doing that. And I got it out to the market, and it didn't do badly, but the way I expected it to be viewed by people was completely different. And then they were asking me for something that would have been far simpler to provide.
And for you, it was low-hanging fruit, right? It was literally just, when will people purchase my product? For what reason?
And
right?
And also, like, could I make a simpler product? But had I done what you're doing now much earlier, had I gone out and just gone to a farmer's market and got that feedback from people. So I think there's this pressure, particularly in the US, when you start a business, people just have this expectation that you're like an overnight millionaire and you have it figured out. So then as an entrepreneur, as somebody starting a business, it's like this pressure to like, oh my God, I need to make this a success right away. And I need to do $1 million in my first year. And I need to do this, and this. And it ends up being super overwhelming. And it's a societal expectation, because, the picture that we're seeing of these entrepreneurs that are doing well, we're seeing the end. We're not seeing the messy bit at the beginning in this iteration process. So I'm just curious how you're navigating this. And also, I think we talked about the other day, but like, what does your day look like? What things are like, have to be part of your day to keep yourself like happy and balanced?
Fortunately, I like everything. I really don't. I don't think that there's a whole lot that I don't enjoy doing. I still love learning. I'm still just as curious as I've always been. I think if anything, that might be one of my biggest vices, is that I have to stop sometimes, but stop trying to learn and do a better job at collecting my thoughts and creating something out of that. The day-to-day life for me has elements of regimen. For example, I get up, when I wake up in the morning, I always make my bed. right? Always. Doesn't matter what I do next, but I always make my bed so that I know that that's done and I can move forward. And if I need to like lay something out on the bed later, it's not going to be this like total mess, you know, clean as you go kind of mentality. Things that I do in no particular order. I always study for at least a few hours. I do give myself a few hours every day to learn something new, to polish something I already know how to do but can get better at, but always a few hours to every day for studying. Exercise is very important. When I was in Hong Kong, I was alone a lot. I didn't really know a whole lot of people out there for a long time. Now I have a brilliant family. Tom, I see you're on in Brixton. Hello, my darling. But I have a wonderful group of friends out there now. But, you know, I really got into exercise. And in that, even, I built a playlist. And, you know, I would go down to the gym and I would get onto the elliptical and I listened to the same songs every time I got onto the elliptical. And it gave me this opportunity to know when to push and when to recover. And, you know, consistency, even in those little things, is very important to me. I spend a few hours every day on my business plan. And, you know, with this COVID thing, it's a little bit interesting. I've done a little bit of cold calling. I've done a little bit of research. Most of the feedback that I'm getting right now is call us back when we know what's going on. We can't really commit to anything right now. But with that said, I've been doing an amazing amount of learning around this endeavor that I'm getting into. You know, you recommended to me the Lean Startup. By Eric Rice, I believe, maybe Reese, R-I-E-S. Brilliant book. It can be applicable to any business, startup, or, you know, a business that's going. A business is process, right? It's doing things as efficiently as you can. And when you think about trying to be perfect at the beginning, when the most important thing that you need to know is what your clients and consumers want, why not start there? Right? Like you also helped me squash the fear of sharing my idea. So because someone might grab it and run with it. The reality is that if you are going to steal my idea, all the better. Because it's not easy. Right? Like, I wish you success. You could be a competitor. Maybe we'll partner. Maybe we'll emerge later. I don't know. But you know, the fear of that, like, oh, well, if I have a good idea, I can't tell anyone because they're going to take it and run with it. That has been a major learning in the past 2 weeks. And really trying to apply, you know, I mentioned at the beginning, I dabbled in everything, right? Jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah.
The reality is that I am a master of social interaction. I am a master at bringing people together and trying to help them find the most fun and the most efficiency in what it is that they're doing. And that's been me since the day I was born. My mom told me the other day, we were at the mortuary for my gramps, and she's like, you know, you've always just wanted to make sure that everyone is being considered. You've always wanted everyone included. And that is my MO. And it took me a really long time to recognize that the person that I am may not be a pinpoint on, you know, I'm an engineer or I'm a veterinarian or whatever it might be, but I am a master. And so how do I leverage what I'm passionate about and good at for the good of myself and the good of the others around me? And so, and thank you so much for the Lean Startup. When you read a book and it acknowledges your mindset, the things that you think, you know, like I'm studying for my project management certification, my PMI. And when you look at the rigorous, like repetitive, detailed, and we need to have a plan for this, and we need to have a plan for that, and it's going to be a matrix, and there's going to be data. It's all great, but forget the fluff. Look at the positive and the negative. Look at the actual data. Like, it's no longer about short spurts and making a report look good. Mm-hmm. Make the report actually be good, right? Like, falsifying things to make someone else look glamorous is no longer trending, right? Like, long-term strategy is where we're headed. And I'm so excited about that.
I love you so much for using the words fun and efficiency in the same sentence. Like, such a girl at my heart. And I think people think I'm mad for like going on. I'm like, productivity is the key to freedom, right? And I'm like, what are you on about? Like, honestly, when you do systems, when you have efficiency about the way you go about your life, it opens up all of this other time to do fun stuff, to do movement, to spend time with friends. And because you've got that system, it means that your brain is like not worried about all the things going on, right? You can focus on everything in the moment. So one of the things that I was really loving the idea of you sharing with everybody watching is how you stay motivated and what you do when you're feeling stuck or like you're waning in your motivation.
Motivation, gosh, let me see here. I've written a response to the motivation thing because it was a difficult thing for me to think about, actually. So I didn't want to sound like that girl who says, I'm always motivated. This is such a funny question because I've always had a fire burning. Something has recently changed in me. For the first time ever, I am able to visualize a future for myself. I've never known what my future looks like. I've never seen myself at a wedding. I've never seen myself as a corporate executive. I've never seen myself really anywhere, where I'm going to live, what I'm going to do, who I'm going to be. And now I'm able to visualize what it is that I want. And the you sent over a list of questions, which I really appreciate. And one of the things that you also asked is what would you encourage someone to do who's lacking motivation? And I would say that for me, when I look to that future and when I look to what it is that I want, I am not truly at the center of it, right? It's selflessness. It's the fact that I want my family to be happy. I want my friends to be happy. I want to be able to provide experiences and good times for the people that are around me. And if you don't motivate yourself to contribute to your community and to contribute to your family, you're going to wind up losing out on a lot of opportunities that are all around you, right? And so motivation for me is just an opportunity to spend more time and build more things for the people that I really do love.
And we were talking about this the other day, but I think when people are so impact driven and driven to like be there for their families or like help people or make a real impact and not really like commercially driven, it's still okay to want to have financial stability, because the financial stability and having a business allows you to deliver impact on a larger scale, right? When you're not worried about income and business, you're able to like give even more of your energy and time to families. So it's this really interesting, I think a lot of creatives especially are like, no, I can't make money. It would like mess up my art. So, I think building a business to be able to deliver impact and to put you in a place that you're secure enough to be able to spend more time with your family is super commendable. So one of the things that I think happens a lot when you're in startup mode is that you can end up getting like fully into what you're doing and kind of like blinkers on and getting sucked into it. I know that definitely happened to me, to the point I was waking up in like panic attack on Sunday morning if I wasn't working on my business. So how are you nourishing yourself, and how are you kind of putting, you talked about discipline, but what's your structure like to make sure that you're incorporating other things besides just fully immersing yourself in this startup right now?
Honestly, that is something that requires quite a bit of effort, right? Because you get so excited. And if you have so much motivation in one department, you can wind up alienating the things around you. Fortunately, I have friends that do reach out to me. And the COVID thing, I got back from Hong Kong right as the COVID thing started. I haven't been in America without a mask on in public since I've been back. So it's interesting to kind of have to feel it out, and it will be different as we move forward. But the reality is that I approach everything with positive mindset, even distraction. I try to give myself a little bit extra time in everything I do so that if a distraction does come up, I can take it as an opportunity. Usually distractions are the things that we love, right? I'm asking if I want lunch. It's the dogs interrupting me when I'm working out. It's the phone call that I'm getting from a friend from across the sea when I'm, in the shower. And those elements, when those are blessings, right? Distractions can most of the time are blessings, but because we're so focused on the things that we have in front of us, we look at them as nuisances, distractions, aggravations. And so I do, I have a mindset for approaching distractions with positivity. And what winds up happening is the things that would be distractions become my nourishment, right? Locking eyes with my mom's dachshund Max as he's trying to lick my face during my regimen. Like, it becomes love. It becomes something that touches your heart. It gives you reason to do things, and it winds up motivating you. So I just try to reverse engineer words like distraction and kind of place words like opportunity in the sentence so that I don't feel that they're distractions. And when you do, when you are your own boss, or when you are in control, you have the ability to set those time frames and set those expectations for yourself. So, don't tell yourself it's going to be 30 minutes when it's very likely going to be 45. Give yourself an hour. Don't pack your day so tight that you feel like you're running so fast that you can't catch your breath. Give yourself a chance to sprint, jog, walk, recover. And that's not just, actually physically doing that, but like in all things in life, you have to give yourself an opportunity. I think about that elliptical. I think about, you go up, you go down, you go, the random feature, you up and down, but you always come back to recover. And if you don't give yourself those times, you're going to wind up burning out real fast.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. I love the sprint, run, jog, relax, recover. It's super important. And I kind of, as you were talking about that, I was reflecting about actually how I schedule my day now. And I do end up building a lot of buffers and knowing that things might come up. But talking about distractions, we know that it takes 23 minutes to get your head back into whatever it was you were working on when you are distracted by something. And oftentimes we end up being our own distractors. So I'm curious what role your phone and social media and TV and that sort of thing plays in your life. Do you have any structure around that, or you let those distractions come in? Like, what's the digital side of Steph?
Yeah, well, it's going to change because one of the projects I'm working on is developing my personal brand and my niche and my, website and all of that fun stuff, which will be launching in the next couple of weeks. And I'm super excited about it. You can't get away with building a personal brand these days without it being across digital platforms. So I will be engaging with social in a different way in the upcoming weeks and into the future. A lot more regimen, a lot more communication, a lot more relevance with regards to the things that I believe and the things that I feel into the world, and seeing what that winds up doing. But as of right now, I use my phone. Well, I mean, my gosh, if I didn't have my phone when I was living in APAC, I would still be lost in China somewhere. I heavily relied on my phone for reading maps and knowing where I was, for communicating to the Chinese taxi driver where I was going, for staying in touch, again, with such a broad history of, I'm still in touch with friends from when I was 3 years old, through high school, through all of these different jobs. So my social life right now is my way of staying in touch. I love watching people's stories, but not people I don't know. so much, right? I have a handful, a small percentage of people that are motivating influencers that I follow intentionally so that I can be, driven by them. But for the most part, my social media interface from a personal standpoint is very much focused on staying in contact with people that I love and that I want to continue to have relationships with for the rest of my life. My phone is always on silent. If there's a text message, I don't need to instantly reply. If there's a phone call that comes in, I will listen to the voicemail, but I don't stress myself out with the instant, need to have to pick something up. I think, being in our age range, we're very fortunate to have the initial training of mud pies in the backyard and, riding bikes on the cul-de-sac. That is a lot different now. Kids have iPads and they have, they're always expected to be connected to some type of technology, but it is really easy for me to have my phone away when I'm working or when I'm with someone. Like I can put my phone away and I don't need to look at my phone for hours. But when I am I utilize it as a tool, right? To stay connected and to be efficient.
What advice would you give? Because I know one of the most freeing things I ever did for myself was put my phone into airplane mode before bed. And then when I wake up in the morning, I'm not checking my phone first thing in the morning. And I make a conscious decision about what time in the day that I turn my phone back on. And then I'm in that mindset for receiving those messages. But I know a lot of people struggle with thinking they're going to miss something or there's going to be some emergency or, they make phones super addictive. So how do you get in that frame of mind that you are able to put the phone away, that you do feel cool? Do you have any advice for people that are struggling to disconnect from the phone?
Well, it's this. There are times where you need to be checking your emails very frequently. There are times where any call that comes in, no matter what the area code, even if it says telemarketer, you have to pick it up because you are in go mode. And when you're in go mode, time is really important. And it's one of the most relevant things to getting things done, being reliable, making sure that you're coming across professionally. It's a roller coaster. It's that random up and down again. So if you are in go mode, give yourself a game plan. If you are in a study or development mode, give yourself a different plan. It doesn't have to be the same plan every time. It can change week to week. It could change even day to day. But you have to recognize what you're trying to accomplish with the time that is currently happening. And you need to use your phone as a tool to help you achieve what you're trying to get done. If it winds up being a vortex, a hole, you're candy crushing for hours, I've taken phones away from people and I have deleted apps from their phone because I'm this is not helping you. You think that it is, but if you were doing it 10 minutes a day with control, sure. But if you're doing it for hours, so that's my advice. Build a plan with your phone as a tool, not as a mechanism for distraction.
So I'm just going to give the viewers a heads up that I'm going to open it up to questions in a minute. So start typing your questions in the comments section and we'll take a couple questions. But I think it's really interesting. We were brought up in events. So literally you get on site and you have to make a plan within a couple minutes time. So it's just naturally within our DNA to always come up with a plan. But I think it's really foreign to a lot of people to actually plan things. And one of the examples that I give is that whenever you go into the kitchen to make a meal and you didn't read the recipe first, and then you realize you're missing an ingredient or there's a step that you needed to soak the cashews overnight. All the vegan recipes have something that you have to soak for 24 hours before. And then you're oh my God, I can't make this now. So give us a couple tips on how to plan. And it doesn't need to be anything onerous, right? But to you and me, this is just second nature. So for somebody that maybe doesn't have that natural ability to plan, what tips would you give?
Well, I like your analogy with the kitchen. I mean, number one, what is your objective? Right? What are you trying to accomplish? And anything that you do, if you're planning, has to have that objective as the finish line. What do you need to be able to accomplish that objective? Create a list, right? Listing is something that I love checking off the list, but make a list. Give yourself a time frame, right? Schedule is everything. So once you've identified what you need, grid out how you're going to get it. It could be that if it's something quick and simple, might be able to accomplish it all in one day. If it's something more complicated, it might take time, but dedicate that time, identify it on your calendar, and make it a priority in your life.
Yeah.
And hold yourself accountable. Like give yourself a reward. Maybe you get yourself a mani-pedi once it's done. Maybe you get bragging rights. But once you've accomplished your goal, celebrate it and make sure that you're recognizing that there's value in accomplishing even the smallest goal.
Yeah, 100%. So, I think, and this can be applied to everything, right? Like if you're like, I need to clean the kitchen, like you can make a plan for that and get through it so much quicker. If you're like, right, I need to clean what do they call it in the US? The burners. It's called the hob.
The range.
Oh, yeah, the range. Is that what it's called? Oh my God. So living in both places for too long, my words are lost. But you can plan out the things that you need to do and check them off as you go, and then it's like even more like motivation. Like, right, I just need to get through these 3 things, and then I think the celebration at the end is super important. And nourishment. Like how we nourish ourselves, like how we do things that make us feel good for no other purpose than to make ourselves feel good. And oftentimes like high achievers and entrepreneurs can withhold this from themselves because it's like you set your goals so high. It's like, I need to get that $1 million business or whatever, that you end up like not nourishing yourself along the way. And I certainly did this to myself. And I was asked the question, in the depths of my despair, like, how do you nourish yourself? And I could not answer that question because I did absolutely nothing to nourish myself. So I'm really curious, like what things you do to nourish yourself.
I mean, it comes back to, you asked me about quotes, and I have so many of them, but one that I come back to all of the time, and it doesn't matter if you're an executive or if you are a kid in a dirty bedroom, for every job that must be done, there is an element of fun. If you find the fun, the job will be a game. And again, it's about recognizing distractions can be opportunities. The things that we need to get done in life, if you approach it as an arduous, heavy weighted task, you are going to treat it that way. But if you can find the positive in what it is that you're doing, and you can lighten the mood, turn on some music. If you're cleaning the range, crack open a beer, whatever it is that works for you, right? Or don't crack open a beer. I mean, it could be fresh squeezed lemonade. It could be anything, right? But at the end of the day, what works for you, what you like to do, needs to merge. Like your passion needs to merge with your plan. And if you can merge your plan and your passion, then everything that you do will be more enjoyable, even cleaning the range.
Right. So I don't know if we've talked about the disco barbecues yet, but just a reminder, drop your questions in the comments if you guys have any questions for Steph or me, or just questions in general about life or starting up a business or what it was like being a Disney performer. Yeah, like the disco barbecues. And this is one of the things that I loved about you when I first met you, is like you always made time for play and for fun, and also just bringing authenticity. And it wasn't like, I don't care what anybody thinks. Like that's kind of me. I'm like this like roadie, like, rah, take me as I am kind of thing. And you're just like, yeah, I'm me, and I loved that about you. And one of the things that you still do to this day is the disco barbecues. So tell the world about these. They're incredible.
It's so interesting. The disco barbecue, the Disco de los Muertos, will be this year on Halloween. It is the one thing that I do every year that brings together a collection of people that I intend to keep in my life forever. It gives me an opportunity to stay connected, and it gives me an opportunity to give back and say thank you, basically. But there have been some really interesting side effects from the disco barbecue. Finding out my true passion. There was one night at the 10th annual disco ball where a gentleman named Roy Leonard, he kept asking me what to do, and I kept giving him tasks, little tasks, and he would come back and he'd be like, done, like, great, what can I do now? And then I stopped for a second and I said, Roy, what do you do? What do you love? What can you do? What do you want to do? And he said, well, I'm in lighting. And I'm like, I totally need this entire party lit. Here are the extension cords. Here are the lights. Here are the gels. Take it and make it. And he was gone for the rest of the night. And he set up the lights like nobody's business. And I recognized that what I love to do more than anything else is find out what other people love and to give them the tools and supplies they need to get there. Wow. Right? It helped me, it helped him, it all came together perfectly. I've also learned a lot about my family dynamics. My sister and I, who have a performance group, the Sisters of Z, we write and perform music together. And we are so similar in so many ways, but we are so different in others. And working together on the disco barbecue helped me recognize her work style, my work style, and the fact that sometimes you have to trust people, always, but truly in this environment, you have to trust people to take their own journey, recognizing that the objective is the same, but there are different roads to get there. And if you try to control every pivot on the road when you're delegating a task to someone, it's going to turn into a tumultuous relationship. And the whole point of the event is to have fun and to party. So I needed to learn how to step back, and I needed to learn how to allow others to bring their creative energy to the table so that I could appreciate that my idea is not always the best idea, and my way is not always the best way. And if I truly give others freedom to deliver and collaborate to my ultimate vision, it will become a much better event than I ever could have built by myself.
I love that. So the first disco barbecue I went to, I think was like 2008 or 2009. And it was at
celestial disco.
It was the 80s prom night.
Oh, that actually wasn't a disco.
Was it not? I thought it was.
No, 80s prom night was a Whitney and Kelsey Blair brothel party. And that actually wasn't, that wasn't, because the disco barbecue is always like 70s-ish themed. But the space disco was also at that same house.
Yes. Okay, thank you. I knew there was one at the Blair Mansion that I went to.
Space disco, celestial disco.
So incredible.
It was such an amazing venue. That was the hardest load in and the hardest load out that I had ever had to pull off. We carried like furniture down multiple flights of stairs, like the heaviest couches ever. But again, it's so crazy. This last disco was on my 40th birthday. And I had such an outpouring of generosity because, I never, no one pays for the disco barbecue. It's something that I give. I got my banners donated by AAA and the wonderful Frank. I got, I had flowers donated. I had all of my labor donated. I had people stay after to help me clean it. I had 30 minutes to strike my event. And I had an amazing group of people stay and collaborate and take it all down after totally enjoying it. I had all of my sound equipment. The wonderful Scott Ramsey at Broadcast Support donated. It was just one of those moments where I recognized that, and Luis Alejandro Guzman, my fashion designer, brought in a live band, and all of the things that I had given were suddenly being given back to me, and it was just like the most grateful experience that I possibly could have had, and just filled my heart with so much appreciation and just makes me want to keep going. For anyone who's listening out there who is still on their path there and they're young, don't undervalue, or it doesn't matter how old you are, don't undervalue the power of your network. we are so much stronger together than we are alone. And sometimes we're afraid to ask. But when you do ask, it is unbelievable the response that you will get, and the support that you will get, and the advice that you will get. And, for me, getting to escape the travesty of the road that I was on my startup because of the advice that I was given by people who had already been there and experienced similar things is invaluable. Right? It's my life. It's my time. It's my energy. It's the things that I'm doing. And even though I have a lot of energy, I don't have as much time as I used to. And so I need to be as strategic as possible in the things that I do moving forward. And to your point, I don't want to work 24/7. I do really enjoy swimming in the pool, traveling, meeting new people. And that is something that is balancing the work that I do, right? That work-life balance. And so for me, there is no separation between the work that I do, the person that I am, and the fun that I have. There's, if I'm traveling somewhere, I'm going to learn something that will contribute to my work. If I am working somewhere, I'm going to learn something that will contribute to my life. And if you can approach things in that way, you'll really come to a full pot of possibility. And I'm super excited. Like I said, I hope, I don't think that I'm alone in this. I know that you're on the train as well. Are you excited about the future?
I'm super excited. Yes, it's a really bizarre time at the moment, but I'm encouraged that people that I never expected to I don't want to say enlightened, but just, that moment when you're like, there is more to life than killing myself in my career or just taking the party line, and I think especially the American hamster wheel of like, I'll get to rest when I retire. And a lot of people were surprised when I moved to London. They're like, oh, Americans don't have passports and they don't travel. And I was like, well, we got no holiday, there's no legal entitlement to any vacation time. When the company that we worked at, like I got no holiday the first year that I worked there. So, this is just how it is in America. And that can be so hard when you're just in this culture where, you have a baby and you get 6 weeks unpaid leave to be with your child, and people are making jokes like, hope your job's here when you get back. So, it's a really indoctrinated thing in our head that we just need to work ourselves to death when we're Americans. And I think this is prevalent kind of in the rest of the world, maybe not to that degree. But people are waking up and they're realizing there's more to life, and they don't want that old school view of success anymore. And it encourages me. And, it makes me really excited, and people are starting to value their well-being. And I think it's wonderful. So that actually leads me on to my almost final question, which is, what does living unrestricted mean to you?
For fear of talking forever about that, I did write a couple of words. Unrestricted to me means being responsible, being authentic, and thinking outside of the box.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So I think we have shy people. There are still people watching, so we didn't get any questions from them, but I so appreciate your time and your insight and getting to explore that beautiful brain of yours, because I've always been really fascinated by you, and I've always been like really uplifted by your energy, and I'm sure everybody that's watching is kind of able to feel that too, and just this like beautiful outlook on life. And I think you're starting something really exciting, and it's really brave, and being in startup mode is super difficult, but like being able to, put the ego to one side and say like, hey, I'm going to go outside of myself and ask people and get their feedback and, enjoy this process rather than stressing myself out that I need to get it right straight out the gate. So whenever I interview people or do any of these like fireside chats, I like to throw a question at them. So if you could wave a magic wand right now.
Ooh,
And
okay.
something could happen. There's your magic wand. I love it. If you could wave a magic wand and something would happen, either personally or professionally or for your business or for the world or whatever, it can be anything. It's your magic wand. What thing would you have happen?
Oh gosh, there are so many things. Can I wave it more than once?
You get one. What
that every individual embraces their potential and recognizes their accountability to contributing to the community around them.
I love it. Oh, I love it. Amazing. Oh, Steph, this was awesome. Thank you for being my guinea pig for this first one. And thank you to everybody that is listening right now. Steph's waving her magic wand all over you. So this is super fun. So much fun. I mean, like the first time or like a week ago when we chatted, we literally were on the phone for 4.5 hours. So like I could talk forever, but I'm going to spare the people a 4.5 hour chat and we'll end it after an hour and a half. But I love this and I love you so much. And thank you so much for sharing. And I'm going to be sending out a link later this week if anybody wants to watch the replay, and also some more info on Steph if you want to follow her and her journey. It's super incredible. So thank you so much for everyone.
And thank you everyone for tuning in and for commenting. And Frank, activation of businesses and buildings will be in high demand and your platform will facilitate this greatly. Nicholas, who I worked with, he was on my team in APAC. We were in China together. He's now in Western Europe. But thank you everyone. My mom, Jan, Tom, thank you so much for tuning in for what was my first podcast as well. Woo! And Athena, all the best to you. And thank you so much for hosting me. And thank you so much for giving a voice to so many wonderful people who are out there. And Frank says, congratulations, Athena, for your first episode. So I think that is where to leave it.
Wicked. So thanks, Steph. I'm just going to really quickly, before we sign off, I'm going to hide you. So if you want to say goodbye really quick.
Everyone. Anna, thank you from the Alps.
Thank you. So really quick, we're going to have another episode next week, same time, same bat place. And I'm super excited to introduce you to my good friend, Atticus Moon. She is just incredible. She's a dancer. She also kicked off the contact dance movement in DC, and she's an embodied movement coach. So I thought the way we could wrap up this week and I could introduce you to Atticus is just play a short 2-minute video. I met this girl in Indonesia at the Circus Collective that I was staying with, and I was just really inspired by the way she moved her body and just let that inform her kind of day in her life. And it was watching her dance that inspired me to start dancing for fun again. So I'm just going to show you a little bit about her, and she's going to be joining us next Sunday. So thank you all so much. And I hope you have an amazing, unrestricted rest of your weekend and your day.